to record. I'm gonna have to stream the screen this time so you guys can see After Effects and everything that's going on in there. And what I really want to show, I'm going to review some of the stuff that we did on Tuesday, because the first time you see it, it's probably not going to sink, but I want to show it a couple more times. But the main thing that I want to talk about today is nesting composition. This is a kind of abstract concept, but it's actually very, very useful. Nesting, the term nesting is putting one thing into another. You can think of like a bird's nest has all the eggs in it. And so if we take one thing and we put it inside another, that means we have this new ability to create much more complex. So I know that our scenes are still very simple, but they're going to get complicated really quickly as you add more stuff into them. And so nesting your scenes is a really good way to kind of keep. So I'm going to try to do a quick example of this. So when I open After Effects, it's going to bring me to this open page, and I have this main composition that I created on Tuesday. And so we can see what I created here. I just did a quick example of fading in and then kind of animating these two shapes and then fading out at the end. So I'm going to add a few more things in here, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a new composition. And this gives me a lot of things that I can work with that are going to save me a lot of time in the long run. So to start, I have my main composition up here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sub composition that's eventually going to go inside of my. So I'm going to right click over here and click new composition. And I'll call this, I'm just going to make some like bouncing circles. I'll just call this. You could also go to composition in the menu up here and go to new composition. And eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put circles inside of the. First, I'm going to put stuff in here. So I'm going to, one thing that I want to do with animation is I'm going to do something like a lot of times, I want to like think ahead and plan how I'm going to do it so that I don't have to like waste a lot of time doing it. So basically, I'm just going to make a bunch of circles that are bouncing up and down. But I'm going to animate one and then duplicate it a bunch of times. And then I can also create copies of that, and then I'm going to put them all back into the main. So it's going to look a little bit complicated, but the main point is just that we can, put one other composition. So I'm going to go and add a layer. I'm going to right click and go to new, and I'm going to make a new shape layer. And then I'm just going to get a circle, and I'll just start with like a circle over here. And maybe I'll change the fill. Let's make it. And I'm just going to go over keyframing first. So here I have this transform. And what I'm going to do is animate the position. I'm going to make it bounce up and down. And so to start, I'm going to add a keyframe at the beginning. And then I'm just going to drag this ahead a little bit to like here. And then I'm going to use the selection tool. And I'm just going to drag my circle up. And so you can see over there, that little line, that actually represents my animation when I'm animating with the position. And that's because I'm animating this entire layer, not just the circle. So I'm going to drag the circle up to where I want it to go. And then I'm just going to make it go back down. So it goes up, and then down here, I could drag it back down, or I can just copy. So I'm going to select that first keyframe. I'm going to hit Control C, copy, and then paste it at the. Okay, so now we've got a circle going up and down. It doesn't really look that natural because it's not using some of the principles that we looked at, but we'll fix that next week. So anyway, I've got this little circle here, and I can add to this. So I can select my layer, and I can let's see. I always forget where this is. I can duplicate it. Okay, so I can go to edit, duplicate. I can also just hit Control D, which is probably what I would normally do. So I can hit Control D, and then I can take this new layer that I have. I've animated the position a little bit. I can, move this one over. Okay, actually, let me lock my first circle. And so I can move these keyframes visually. See how I can just drag this keyframe over and it moves the whole circle over. So I don't have to spend all of my time down in here if I don't want to. And I can also select both of these keyframes. Uh, so let me select and then drag. Okay, I'm having a hard time. Try that again. So I can select my key and drag. I don't know why this is. Okay, try that again. I'm going to select my keyframes, drag it over. All right, it doesn't want me to do that, so I'm just going to do it like this. I don't know what I'm not clicking right, but I'm going to skip that for now and I'll figure it out later. Okay, so now I have two circles. And then, of course, I can move the entire composition over. So that moves the circle over, or I can just move these keyframes. Okay, so now I have a few different circles going. This is going to look rough. I need to remember how to select the keyframes correctly, but I'll do. Okay, so let's do that one more time. I'm not going to do the whole thing because you guys get the idea. It's just going to take too long. So I have one more. I'm going to open up the position keyframe by hitting P. And I'll select these and move these guys. And then I can move these keyframes over. Okay, now it's letting. Okay, so I guess I need to select those. Anyway, so now we have a little bit of an animation where we have our different circles going up and down. We're going to make these look better later. But for now, I'm just going to save this. Obviously, I could keep going and add the rest, but I'm going to. But the main thing that I want to show you is now that I have this circles composition, I can go back to my main composition and I can drag my circles composition right in. And so instead of having those three layers, now I just have one main layer that I can move around on its own within the main composition. So now I can have my fade in and my other thing going. I'm going to have to move up above the background. And so then I can add in my three circles. And so I can have that whole composition in this main composition. So I can make lots of different little scenes and then put them all together. So again, right now it doesn't look that bad because if I go into the circles composition, I only have 3 layers. It's not that crazy. But imagine if I had 20 or 100 different layers and that was all together with all the other layers. By nesting these compositions, I can save myself a lot of time and organization. And then I can lock this guy here so I can't change it in the main one. But I can still double click on it and open it over here, and I can still edit this one. Okay, so I can have different compositions that have the same content, but I have the ability to kind of move them around and edit them and change them and stuff like that. And then I can also, make a copy of this one. So let's say, I guess not in the right menu, but I can duplicate it. So let's say I want to have some more circles. I just make a new composition. Here's my new circles. I can, let's unlock this for a second. Let's just select all these guys. And let's just make a simple change. I'll just change the fill, something a little bit different, just add a little bit of variety and save this. And then I can go back to my main composition and throw these new circles in here. And I can move these guys around. So let's move them over here. I can move them in the timeline, but I can also move the position inside of the other composition. So let me move them above the background right now. Okay, so now the circles are in the same place, but I can, take the position here and just move them over. So I can start to add a lot of content without having to, spend time recreating each exact circle the same way. So now I have twice as many circles, and some of them have different colors and are in different positions. So I can start to create a lot more complexity in my animation by adding to the new content. So this is kind of similar when we were looking at the different examples from animation history. See that people use a lot of different techniques to fill in the content because it takes so long to hand draw animation. We're of course not hand drawing animation here, although if you want to do that, you can. It's probably be a lot harder, but some of you guys might be animation majors, have some sense of creating animation. But anyway, the main point I want to make is that we don't have to do every single step from scratch. If we plan things out a little bit, we can say, okay, I want to have this many circles and I want them to do. So really, I only need these two compositions. I'm going to create one composition based on the other composition. And so I can save myself a lot of time by, creating these sub compositions. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Hopefully that kind of makes sense and will be useful. I'm going to